I'm Dave, this is Dave Takes It On. Well, for half a century, we've always done the same thing. You go to a car showroom, there's a brand new car in there, and on the windscreen, there's a sticker and it tells you the miles per gallon. It will have maybe a city thing, a urban thing, an overall thing, but whatever it is, it will give you the mileage. And we all know you got more chance of being bitten by a lettuce than getting that sort of mileage out of your car that you buy that has that sticker in it. It's really just an indication because, first of all, the actual testing is fixed. It's not out on the road, it's not real driving. It's all simulated in laboratories and test beds and everything. So it's under ideal conditions. But of course, the other thing we do all know is they totally lie about the figures they get. You thought Dieselgate was just about exhaust emissions. It wasn't. They were lying about the miles per gallon as well. Anything they can do to make it look better, they will do it. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal. And it's not just something that happened 20 years ago. This is actually still going on now. Just recently, Mazda and I think it was Honda have just been caught doing exactly the same thing. So they've been lying for a long time, but it doesn't really matter. We've just got used to their lies. We've got used to not getting the mileage that you see on the cars in the showroom. This, up until now, has all been about petrol cars, diesel cars, and latterly the hybrids. This is nothing to do with EVs. Because when EVs came along, it was a totally different story. And they could have actually got it right. They didn't. They got it totally wrong, but they could have got it right. What they should have done when they came up with EVs, they can't do miles per gallon because they don't use any gallons of fuel. But they could have used miles per kilowatt hour. A kilowatt hour is our equivalent storage of energy of a gallon. So they could have, on all the cars, all the electric cars, they could have said, this car does 2.4, 2.8, 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. And we would have been able to absolutely easily compare one with another. If we narrowed our search down to two cars, one which did 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour and another one which did 4 miles per kilowatt hour, you would know that if all else was equal, the one that did 4 miles per kilowatt hour would cost you less in electricity. You can drive them all the same distance, but if you're doing 4 miles per kilowatt hour, you're using your electricity at a slower rate than if you're driving and using it at 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. So you'd be able to do it, and then you'd be able to work out from that if, for example, one car does 2, one car does 4, it will use virtually twice the amount of electricity to do the same mileage. So you can then do your calculations accordingly. But they chose not to do that, and it's a figure that they still actually don't use to this day very much. What they chose to do instead was a really weird thing. No idea who came up with this one, but they decided to take the capacity of the battery and multiply it by that economy, the 2, 3 or 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and come up with a range that the car will do. Now, of course, in the early days, the batteries were quite small. These weren't going anywhere. These weren't long-distance road trip cars. These were things like Nissan Leafs, Renault Zoes, and they were deliberately designed with relatively small batteries. So when you multiplied one by the other, they weren't very efficient, the batteries weren't very good, and you came out with a range of about 100, maybe 120 miles for a full battery. And of course, that was manna to the media attention. 100 miles in a car, what use is this? This is absolutely useless. And even when later cars came along, like the Teslas, the Model S and the Model X, and they had a range of about 250 miles, it just became a point of scorn. Oh, they can only do 200 mile. My diesel can do 500 mile on a tank full. Two are totally unrelated, but that's what they latched onto. And so they came up with this idea of range. And as soon as you know your car can only do 100 or 172 or 214 miles, that's now an anxiety. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do when it runs out? Well, you're going to fill it up, of course, but that doesn't matter. But when they started looking at this, and the cars started getting a little bit better, and you got ranges of up over 200 mile, still the media was banging on about, oh, you need at least 500 mile, but really we could do with 1,000 miles of range. And you're thinking, whoa, just hold on a second, because the first thing is there's no petrol car ever has been able to do 1,000 mile on tank full, ever. They don't make them. Now, they could quite easily just put a whopping big fuel tank in, but then you wouldn't have a boot. So they just don't do it. There's no point in it when you can just stop and top up. So most cars today do 2, 3, 4, maybe 500 miles, that sort of range. A few of the hyper fueling ones will get up to about 600. That's it. But most cars round about 300 or 400. But what people hadn't understood was that the average driver does 8,000 mile a year. This is according to the government, the UK government, according to the RAC, according to the leasing companies. They're all saying the most popular lease is 8,000 mile, and that's the mileage. So 8,000 miles a year is 140 miles a week. And if your car can do 200 miles, you've got about 50% of the what you've used in store. In other words, a third of your battery left at the end of a week. So the reality for a lot of people is you'll just charge it up once a week. And I get countless comments in the section down below, people telling me, look, I've been driving EVs for 5 years. I've never charged at a public charging station ever. And others, well, I only ever go on a long journey, more than 30 miles once a year. That's for the summer holiday. We go down to Devon and it's a 300-mile trip, and I just charge on the way once a year. And that's what we don't understand. Everyone's panicking about this range anxiety. Oh my goodness, car run does 200, 250 mile. But for most of us, we never get anywhere near that. Once a week we'll top up. So that's where we started from. So we got the new measurement for cars, which is the WLTP, and the WLTP is just a standard, and it's like the miles per gallon test. Only it will tell you how many miles this particular car with this particular battery can actually do. Once again, you've got no chance of getting actually that range. First of all, it depends on summer and winter, because the batteries are not as efficient in the winter, so you'll get less in the winter. But most people will never get anywhere near it. And that's the situation. So we've artificially created this range anxiety. It's been done deliberately in some ways by the oil companies and the legacy auto who don't want EVs to take off. And it's just been hyped up to frighten people away. And it's succeeded, as you can tell from the hybrid take-up. People like the reassurance, well, I don't trust the battery, so I'll keep the petrol engine as well. So when the battery does fail or does run out, I can just go on to the battery. It's a totally fictitious equation, but that's how they feel happiest. Anyway, so what's happened recently? Well, what's happened over the last few years is two things in parallel. The first of these is the batteries themselves. So when we started with EVs, this was about 2010, 2011, when the first of them were starting to come in. I know there were some beforehand, but they were just really experimental. So about 10, 12 years ago, they were coming in. The batteries were not very good. The energy density, the power density, the amount of energy per weight of battery was quite low. They're heading down towards 100 watt hours per kilogram. And so they don't have a huge amount of power in them. And because the battery was the most expensive part of the car, they wanted to put as small a battery in as they can, so they could at least try to make a half decent profit. So you had quite low power batteries and you had relatively small batteries. What's happened, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, is we've had a massive development. First of all, LFP, and they've changed the thing altogether. Their energy density when they first came out was down about 120, 130. That now is up over 200. It's a massive change. They've nearly doubled in power over the last 3 or 4 years. In the meantime, NMC batteries, they've also doubled, and they're now up into the 240, 250 watt hours per kilogram. It's been quite a dramatic change. So the actual batteries we're putting into cars today are about twice as powerful as they used to be. And at the same time, there's been a massive movement towards actually making the cars a lot more efficient. Get the weight down. You don't need a solid steel chassis like the old petrol cars. They're starting now to make much, much lighter frames, lighter chassis to build onto. The motors are getting more efficient, wheels getting lighter. Everything is streamlined for efficiency. And so that miles per kilowatt hour, the 2.5 or 3, that's been creeping up. And today, 3 is quite normal, 4 is a regular occurrence. They are about twice as efficient as they were just 3, 4, 5 years ago. So if you add those two together, your batteries are twice as powerful, your car is twice as efficient. Our cars should be going 400 or 500 miles on a full charge. And the reason they're not is because of legacy auto. Because the battery is probably the most expensive part of the car, and they're just buying the batteries in at whatever price they can get them. They want to put in the smallest battery they possibly can. So as the chassis got more efficient, they started shrinking the battery size. So 5 years ago, you'd often get something like an 80 or 90 kilowatt hour battery in things like Mercedes, BMWs, and now that's down into the 60 or 70. So as the batteries got more powerful and as the efficiencies got better, they've just shrunk the size of the battery to keep their costs down. Hasn't worked, they're still losing a huge amount of money, but it's helping them not lose quite as much. So what's been happening is that everything's been moving downwards. Battery energy is doubling, the efficiency is doubling, but they're moving everything downwards with a smaller battery to try to keep the cost down. And of course, it just takes one rebel, and the one it always is, of course, is Tesla. And Tesla's just said, right, we've had enough. We're not going to do this anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to make the cars that we should be making. We ourselves, Tesla, have been keeping the size of the battery packs down to make the cars much more affordable so we can get to #1 best-selling car in the world in 2023. But now's the time. People want actually more than this. So we're going to put in all the advances that we've had, the advances in efficiency, the advances in battery density, power density, and we're going to actually start making decent cars. So I'm going to refer to my notes here because I want to make sure I get this right. Up until recently, the battery pack has been round about 55 kilowatt hours for the standard model. I say roundabout, it's never a hard and fast thing with Tesla. Tesla have about 4 different battery suppliers. They make their own as well, obviously, and they use whatever's available. So if CATL has an offer on for that week, they'll happily shove either the 2170s or the 4680s into the next car. So one person might order a car today and get the Panasonic 2170 batteries. Another person might get the CATL LFP Shenzhen batteries the next day. We never know. You can test each individual car, you find out what you've got, but it doesn't tell you what everybody's got. So, but whatever it is, when you order it, you'll be told the WLTP range. And the WLTP range for the basic Model 3, this is the refresh model, is 318 miles. So this battery pack has been getting smaller. Some people believe it's now down into the 40, 45 kilowatt hour range. And that's been obviously one of the best-selling cars. It is the cheapest car. It's 39,990, call it 40,000. So what they've done now with the refresh, which is called the Highland, they've decided to just go, let's make what customers want, and they want a longer range. So they've brought out the next model in the range. This is an intermediate model now. Before, if you wanted a long range, you got the dual motor. The dual motor was £10,000 extra, and that gave you 390 miles WLTP. It was a bit of a beast, 0 to 64.2 seconds. It was a fast car, had so much going for it. It was a really good car. But it was a big jump up from the basic model. They've now launched the rear-wheel drive. This is rear-wheel drive, long range. What battery's in it? No idea, and there'll be a lot of guesses. There'll be a lot of people testing it, finding out for their car. May not be for everyone. But the range, the WLTP range on the standard rear-wheel drive, single motor, long range car now, if you order one today, is 436 miles. 436 miles. That is probably the longest range on any car out there, but with one proviso. I know there are others like Rivians, etc. But the difference here is the press, the media's got hold of these test cars. Obviously, people like Car Wow and others, they've been out testing them on the road under real world conditions. And what is happening is they're getting results back, which are saying that not only are they actually getting the WLTP figure regular as clockwork, they're beating it, admittedly only by 1 or 2 miles range, but they're actually beating it. So if you look at other cars who claim a range of 450, 500, 550 miles, they might only be doing 50, 60, 70% of the WLTP rated range. So they're not getting a true 440 miles of range. With the Tesla rear-wheel drive long range, 44,990, it's midway between the two, and that gives you a genuine 436 miles. This is staggering. It means that if I was to want to set off from where I am in Preston, heading down to Cornwall, it's about 350 mile, I could top up the night before and I could be down in Cornwall without having to stop. Now, I always do stop. I need my brakes as I get older, but I wouldn't have to stop. And if I stopped, I wouldn't have to charge. That's the important difference. What they've done with the performance is really quite interesting. The standard range is 5.8 seconds. That's quite a quick car. What they've done with the rear-wheel drive long range is actually drop that below 5 seconds, 4.9 seconds. I just want to give you a sort of a taste of what that means, because people just don't understand the performance of these electric cars. It's below 5 seconds. Cars at 5 seconds include the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, it's 5.2. The BMW M30e, that's 5.1, I think it is. The Ferrari Testarossa, that's 5.2. Porsche Macan and the Mercedes G65 AMG. Your bog standard rear-wheel drive long range Tesla Model 3 will leave those at a set of traffic lights. Now, I know we don't buy them for this. This is just an added bonus, and this is what Elon has said all the way along. Give the people what they want. If all you want is to put it into chill and never use it, that's absolutely fine. You've got the range. You've now got 436 mile range. If you want to try and burn off Ferraris or Aston Martins at the traffic lights, you've now got the ability to do so. So this is a huge step change, an absolute monstrous step change. And it's going to feed through to the Model Y. Now, the Model Y, we believe, is due for a refresh. It hasn't happened yet, but the Model Y standard range is now being discontinued. Like the Model 3, you can only get the rear-wheel drive long range. And that one is now got a WLTP range of 373 miles. And as far as I'm aware, this hasn't actually been benchmarked, but it's quite likely that you'll get it. One of the reasons is it's a bigger car, it's a heavier car, it's less aerodynamic. If you see a 3 and a Y together, the Y is absolutely sports car-like compared to the Y. If you see an S alongside it, that's even lower. They're quite amazing. So what you're starting to get now is you're starting to get ordinary saloon cars with a genuine range of around about 400 miles on a single charge. The charging network has grown dramatically over the last 12, 24 months, and it's now absolutely everywhere, making it easier to charge. The charging rate of these is generally 250 kilowatts, but all of the Tesla superchargers can charge them, and you're looking at a full charge time of sort of 10% to 80% in probably about 35, 40 minutes for these. This is a dramatic change. What I'm hoping this will do is it will start shutting up some of those critics who say you need 1,000 miles range. You don't. That's a stupid figure. If they ever made one, they put a battery in it and said, well, this is £70,000 for a Model 3 with a double battery in it, nobody would buy it. They go, no, I'll just stop and charge and have a cup of coffee. That's what it is. So this is actually throwing a lot of spanners into the works. In particular, the legacy auto, the likes of Ford, Vauxhall, Stellantis, because what they've been doing is they've been trying to keep their prices high in order to try and make a better profit margin when they do sell one of their cars. And they've been able to get away with it because it's the only cars they have on offer. Now you can start getting in the £40,000 range, £45,000 range, a car which has got a 436 mile range, and it's got a performance which is faster than a Ferrari Testarossa. That's quite amazing. In America, they've dropped the price of the Teslas recently, and I think China did as well. We've not seen it in the UK yet, but this is a massive change. So if you're on holiday, you can now jump from Preston to Cornwall. You could go from Kent to North Wales. You could go from the Midlands right up to into the middle of Scotland, all on a single charge with one of these cars now. And they are superb cars, really good value for money. It's really just starting to shake up the field. The legacy auto is going to have to rethink everything that they do, because what they've been doing, first of all, hasn't been working, but with this sort of thing appearing on the market, this is just going to absolutely destroy them. Why would you buy a Ford Mustang Mach-E, which has got a range of 273 miles, when you can buy a car which is a little bit it's not even dearer, about the same price, and you can get 463, or if you get the Model Y, it's 373 miles, extra 100-mile range. Doesn't make any sense. So some of the legacy now have got a lot of thinking to do. So anyway, that's just the introduction. I'm going to get a test drive in these. I'm going to start doing some reviews of my own of these, getting them filmed, doing set test runs, so we can actually start showing this in practice. But for now, that's it. I'm Dave, just enjoying a bit of the sunshine. So thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. It makes such a difference to us as a small channel. If you subscribe, it means YouTube looks on us very differently if we have a lot of subscribers. And as always, leave your comments down below, and a big thank you to our Patreon members. I'm Dave.